What's up to everyone in the League of Ordinary Gentlemen's Fantasy League? My name's Rick, and I am going to be doing a recap of Week 2 for your league. If you're wondering who I am, I'm just a random guy who's obsessed with fantasy, probably like a lot of you. I follow very closely. I'll be giving my opinions, but also be giving my opinions as if they're fact, just like any other person talking about fantasy is doing, especially the ones on TV. But with that, we had some good matchups this week, so I want to recap what's going on in this league. Before I do that, I do want to say I love this league structure. I think it's like super, super cool the way that y'all do relegation, kind of like the Premier League. I've never seen a league do this before, and it's great. So that's a lot of fun, and excited to recap the league. So for week 2, the first matchup we're going to be looking at is between Tupacalypse Now and the Prophet. Tupacalypse Now got the win 159 to 157. The reason he really won this game is because the Prophet lost Saquon to an injury and Saquon only got a few points. So we'll talk about the winning team first. Pac to the future, solid team. The question mark for me is that he was starting Robbie Anderson and Lazard. One hell of a start with Robbie Anderson, getting 22 points, 110 yards, really impressive, ton of targets and catches. I'm a Jets fan, so I know that he's a talented guy, but I didn't think in that offense he would be so stellar. I will say that I do not love the future for this team with Robbie and Lazard starting. Robbie Anderson is obviously a great deep threat, and I think Christian McCaffrey helps a ton. Christian McCaffrey is now out with an injury, and I do not think Robbie Anderson is going to get the same deep looks that he does when normally a team might have to stack the box on defense. So while this team got the win, I will say I think it was part luck because of Saquon, but also he got some contributions from guys I wouldn't trust long term. Good news for him is Jonathan Taylor, who I initially did not like preseason because the Mac injury is really just going to be the bell cow, and he looks really great. So you got the win. You have some guys on your bench you could sub in. But the wide specifically at running back, at the wide receiver position, I would be a little concerned with the guys you have right now. But with that being said, congrats on the win, going to 1-1. Also going to 1-1 because of the loss is the Prophet. As we mentioned, Saquon's injury is an absolute killer. So when we're looking at this week specifically, outside of the Saquon injury, starting Singletary is a massive head scratcher for me. I don't see so much upside with Singletary this year, especially with Zach Moss being involved in Buffalo. I would say that starting Singletary over Montgomery is really surprising. They came out before the game saying Montgomery was going to get a ton of looks on offense. I know he was banged up. I can only imagine that was behind the decision, but unfortunately, it looks like Montgomery would have been the better start, and it would have gotten you the win if you did go with Montgomery. But can't beat yourself up about that. You now know Montgomery could be your guy to sub in at least for Saquon, a running back, while Saquon's out for the season. But with that being said, that means you still will have to start Singletary unless you go with no one else. You don't have another running back. So I would say this team also is in a little bit of trouble with Saquon. I would say this is one of the stronger teams, but unfortunately, with the injury, I don't see this team having the depth, especially at running back, to make up for it. I know this team is making a comeback in this league, so we'll need more upon your return to this league. We're going to need more from you, the Prophet, or the Prophet, I should say. Going to the second matchup, and I'll actually, at this point, I'm going to say, in case anyone just wants to see their matchup, you're having a busy day, I'll just say the order of the next 4 that I'm going to go through. I'm going to do Pain Train versus We Went With Jared, then Straight Knockout versus the Chairman, then the Banditos versus Catch Us Up, Chris Down, and then El Capitan versus the President. So second matchup, Pain Train against We Went With Jared, another matchup that brings 2 teams to 1-1. This time it was the Pain Train getting the win, going to 1-1 with 183 points over We Went With Jared at 171. The story with this matchup, well, first I should say I heard that Jared is the king of this league and has, I think, the most championships. He showed it with a strong performance, but didn't do enough this week. So let's talk about Pain Train and the winning team first. Pain Train, deep, not my favorite team in the league, but very deep because of the depth that you have. Specifically, your quarterback and running back position is stellar. Kyler looks like he could be a top quarterback this year. He's ridiculously mobile, and his wide receivers, obviously, as everyone knows, look great. Kirk made incredible catches. DeAndre Hopkins is probably the most talented receiver in the league, so Kyler's a fantastic pick. Running back position, you're in a great spot too. Dalvin with 17 points, solid game. Aaron Jones with 52 points in your league. I don't know how your scoring works that he got 52, but he had an incredible week, so he should have gotten a ton of points. That running back corps is super strong. The issue I have with this team, the reason I wouldn't call it the best team in the league, is wide receivers. They're solid. They're decent. Mike Evans, Metcalf, and Hilton. But I still love the upside. Mike Evans, one of two guys in an offense that I don't think is going to be a top passing offense in the league. Metcalf, one of two guys also. He's in a little bit better of an offense. I like both of them, but for those to be your top receivers, for me, he's a little bit weaker than other teams that I'm looking at. T.Y. also a bit of a question mark. I actually still like him this year. Paris Campbell just got hurt also, so T.Y. is going to probably get more targets, but he has not shown at all that he has a connection with Phillip Rivers, so that is a little bit concerning. The only story for this team that is a down note, because again, wide receivers are still strong. I'm just saying that's why I don't think you're the best team in the league. The only thing that's a down note is that decision at tight end. I think starting Hawkinson over Higbee on the bench to me doesn't make too much sense. I know hindsight's 2020, but I swear before this week I would have also said it doesn't make sense. Higbee since middle of last season has been unbelievably stellar, and I would certainly start him every week until he shows you in like maybe back-to-back weeks that he's not worth it. But he's on an offense that's just super fantasy friendly, especially to guys receiving the ball. Higbee was productive last year, and that was when they had 3 great wide receivers. They're down to 2 now. I would certainly start Higbee over Hawkinson. Okay, so when we went with Jared, again, stellar team in the league. The running backs are probably the strongest running back group, even stronger than the team we just recapped with Zeke and Nick Chubb. That is really, really great. So, I mean, yeah, not too much depth at the position now at running back. Now if Cam Akers is a little bit banged up, but if Cam Akers comes through also, you'll have depth. Wide receivers for this team needs a little bit of help. I like Allen Robinson. Julio is a little banged up and a question mark. You got to feel good about Julio. The question comes at that third spot. Jarvis Landry, I hate this year. That's not a good passing offense, and Jarvis might end up being the third option. I think he only had 3 targets last game. He might end up being the third option behind a clear Odell at number 1, and then maybe Austin Hooper at number 2. And this is not a good offense to be a passing option for, so don't really love that. Love Waller. At wide receiver, though, to add on to that, Paris Campbell's now hurt. So now when you're looking at that third wide receiver and flex position, you're in a much different position than you were last week. Hopefully Cam Akers comes through for you. John Brown's actually an underratedly good option. But I think the concern for this team might be wide receiver. So they got the loss. They're down to 1-1. Another 2 solid teams. I wouldn't say we've seen the strongest teams in the league just yet with those 4 teams we've gone over so far. Going to the next game, straight knockout versus the Chairman. This game brought straight knockout to 1-1 with the loss and brought the Chairman to 2-0 with the win, 162-90. Chairman got good production across the board from basically everyone. Despite the question marks that are on this team. So this is actually one of my least favorite teams in the league. Sorry to say, even though you're now at 2-0. So I'm happy that I could do something controversial that's not a hindsight of 2020 kind of pick. The reason I say that is running backs solid. Edwards-Helaire and Henry, not my 2 favorite backs, but obviously high quality backs. Matt Ryan, solid quarterback. Wide receivers is super unreliable. This week they did great for you, but DJ Chark I actually like, but only 4 targets. He caught all of them. So that kind of would save the week, but that's a questionable offense. Minshew started off super strong, but we all know that's a questionable offense and team. McLaurin, also a questionable offense. He's going to get a lot of targets, but also a poor offense and just not reliable to get production every week. Deontay Johnson also, I mean, he had an incredible week last week, but you just don't know where he falls in that offense yet. Too young, too early. So I'm not trying to say this is a bad team, but at 2-0, I still wouldn't look at this as one of the strongest teams in the league just based off the wide receivers being so much lower ceiling and lower floor versus other teams. I mean, if you look at the team we just did, the team he's playing against that we'll jump to now, got the loss, really bad week at only 90 points. That's got to be a bummer. But he basically saw 3 wide receivers. He has 3 wide receivers that had probably the worst 3 performances they're going to have all season. Devontae's incredible. He was banged up, and that's really what created the bad day for him. Thielen, fantastic. Ton of targets still. But he unfortunately is that passing offense is just not looking great right now, but they're going to figure it out. Him and Kirk Cousins are going to get a ton of fantasy points together. Gallup also should be fantastic. Had a good week for that offense, but just wasn't involved so much for some reason. But he's a good option as well. So when you look at this wide receiver group versus the other wide receiver group, especially with Thielen and Devontae, I mean, that upside those guys could truly get you 40 in this league, 40 plus points in a given week. Whereas the other team, I just don't see that ever happening for that group. The criticism for this team, because they only got 90 points, is they started Peyton Barber. I don't know why. The bench options are not great at all. The options basically were Peyton Barber, Fournette, or Michelle. And going into this week, I understand being hesitant with Fournette, but to go Peyton Barber is massive question mark. 1 carry for 1 yard. Fortunately, didn't cost you the week because no one was going to win it for you. But alongside James Conner, who fortunately for you has come through, you're going to want to have a better second running back option. And you would assume that Fournette's going to be that guy for you. Flex Emmanuel Sanders is decent as well. So the concern with this team is depth. I like the upside for this team, but the depth is too much of a question mark. So sitting at 1-1, it could be a team that ends up competing based on the upside of Connor, Devontae, and Thielen. But unfortunately, you're going to have to figure out the depth piece first. And of course, you also have an injury to Kittle. So once Kittle comes back, your tight end position won't be an issue either. Okay, the Banditos first catches. I don't know how to pronounce this. Catches up, down. These are 2 rookies facing head-to-head, wanting to prove that they belong. And up to this point, at least the Banditos is having a difficult time at 0-2. Catches up, Chris down, gets the 1-on-1 with a great 190 week to prove that he does belong. So 2 rookies head-to-head will go up with catches up, Chris down first. Production from everyone starting and on the bench. I would say this is actually the deepest team in the league, just a little bit ahead of Pain Train. Every single person produced. We'll go super quickly for this. Josh Allen, 51 points. Josh Jacobs, 14 points. Eckler, 19. Moore, 24. Robert Woods, 11. Marquise Brown, 10. Jonnu Smith, 25. Lockett, 20. Zerline, 12. Melvin, 17 on the bench. DeAndre, 12.2 on the bench. Marvin, 12.3 on the bench. Corey Davis, 12.6 on the bench. Gesicki, 31 on the bench. Deepest team in the league. I think for this team, the production is going to need to come stronger from Josh Jacobs and then Marquise Brown. I feel really good about Marquise Brown. I think you certainly should keep testing him, and I think he'll be able to give you more in the future. I think this is one of the stronger teams in the league. For the Banditos, I heard that you're 10 years old, unless I misread that, because that'd be awkward. But I think you're 10 years old, which is incredible to be in this league at 10. I guess fantasy, you don't really need to be older now that I'm thinking about it, but I don't know. I've never heard of a 10-year-old playing fantasy in any league I'm familiar with. So congrats to you. I'm rooting for you, but unfortunately, tough start playing like a 10-year-old. No, I'm joking around. Sorry, I'm not trying to be hard on you. Rooting for you, 0-2. The question mark here for me is Anthony Miller's start. I do not see him as reliable. I know he's gotten a ton of hype coming to the season as being a solid producer, but Trubisky's throwing the ball. He's definitely not the first option. Allen Robinson's by far going to be getting triple the amount of targets as Anthony Miller. This game he got no catches. I don't think he's a dud. He's definitely worth rostering. I just don't know if I would start him yet. I would have before this week said Sutton's a clear start over Anthony Miller. He did end up doing well, but now he's injured for the year. So unfortunately, your injuries are really hurting this team's depth. With Lindsey out, Sutton out, AJ Brown out. This is a team that normally would actually be fairly strong in my opinion, but right now the wide receiver position is just really beat up. All you have that I like is Tyreek. I don't even like Boyd that much despite the solid week. So a lot of question marks with this team. I won't done chain this team just yet, but not in a good spot. The final matchup is between El Capitan and the Professor. El Capitan goes to 0-2 with the loss. Professor goes to 2-0 with a 180 to 172 win. So if you're the Professor, the winning team, you're going to be looking for more from Deshaun Watson, the only one who really underperformed from where I'm sitting. 14.7 points. Really tough week for the Texans and a tough loss to Baltimore. The good news for you is Kamara looked like what you expected drafting Kamara. I'm assuming top 5. The not great news again. The other good news is Odell also doing well, getting in the end zone finally. Still a question mark, anyone in Cleveland for me, but looking better. Keenan also getting double-digit targets was great for you. Ridley looking like an absolute stud, even better than Julio at this point. Great for you. Fan continuing to look good, and Carson continuing to look good. The bad piece here is Mixon continuing to be just that question mark on an offense that is going to be playing from behind a ton. Similar to what we saw in this game against Cleveland. They were behind almost the entire game. He still was able to get 16 carries, but only bringing that to 46 yards. If you're Mixon's owner, you want to be able to get at least 20 carries, and obviously more production. And then especially if you're playing from behind for most of the game, you want more than 4 targets from the running back position. Fortunately, he did catch all of them for 40 yards. So 12.6 was a decent day, but Mixon looking like a guy who was drafted, I'm assuming this league late first and or early second, looking like a guy who probably was more in the 3rd, 4th round area. So might have been a bit of a reach based on what you're seeing from him. But outside of that, honestly, very, very solid team. This is going to be one of the teams that is probably one of the favorites to win, especially with that strong running back position with Carson third. And very good depth options at running back that if I'm El Professor, I'm trying to make a trade and upgrade a wide receiver position or get a higher quality running back for some of that depth at running back. You have 3 guys who might be starting on other teams. I don't necessarily love them, but they're good options. J.K. Dobbins, Gibson, even Joshua Kelly could be a good option for someone. Latavius Murray could be a good option for someone. I know you like him because you have Kamara. But these are all just decent guys who other teams just don't have that depth at running back. So might want to look into shopping them around. I know Professor is a 3-time champion, and that makes sense to me. I could see it becoming 4 times based on his current team status. The final team is 0-2. It's El Capitan. His struggles continue, or his or her struggles continue in this league. And now he's losing McCaffrey as well. The RB situation is a nightmare. Fortunately for him, Dak's looking like the guy the hype train was hyping up before the season, but losing McCaffrey now for a bit. Your other guy's Kareem Hunt, who had a fantastic week for his value, but is not sustainable. Your next best running back, Malcolm Brown, also got banged up, and then on the bench you have no one. Looking at wide receiver, AJ Green, super unreliable. Juju is solid. Slayton, super unreliable. Kelsey, obviously, super strong. I'd say this is the weakest team in the league, unfortunately, and at 0-2, even though they had a strong week, 172 would have been most of you. But even with that, at 0-2, there's something called the Dun chain. I think I referenced it earlier. Hopefully some of you know it, but I think it started with Part of My Take, the sports podcast, where when team's done, you Dun chain them. And I'm going to have to Dun chain this team. Oh, you know what? Actually, I just remember that 6 teams make the playoffs in your league, which is a lot out of 10, and I think that's right. So I guess I can't Dun chain anyone, but I would say this team is certainly the 10th strongest team at this point with the McCaffrey injury. Hopefully he could make a move and get some value for maybe like the depth at tight end. He has both Kelsey and Ingram, so if I'm him, I try and trade one of my tight ends to a team that needs a tight end for something. But even Ingram's not looking that good. So I'd say this is a bit of a difficult team to recover from. But it does have the upside when McCaffrey comes back, because Dak and Juju could get him a ton of points, and Kelsey in a given week. So with that being said, that's the week 2 recap. Congratulations to the teams that won. Again, if there's 6 of 10 teams make the playoffs, then everyone is certainly alive. No matter what, everyone would be alive. It's only week 2. But we're prone to overreacting in the fantasy world. So congrats to everyone who won. Better luck next week to those who lost. Hopefully I'll be able to see y'all again soon, and have a great day. Bye.